of November 2025. I'm Mark Gardner. The sell-off continued overnight as investors continue to worry about the economic reality check that is potentially coming, and we say potentially. This is probably about as worried as I've seen the market for quite some time. As you can see here, pretty well. We've seen. If you've stood on your head, you've seen this, but we haven't seen a 5-day performance like this across the equity market for certainly since April. It really is sort of starting to get a little bit concerning in terms of how much this is going to drift off here. So the Nasdaq's now down 4% for the week, down 1.2% overnight. The S&P was down 0.81, down 3.3 overnight. For the week, or for the last 5 days, that is. The Dow down 4% as well, down 1.07 overnight. Euro stocks gave back a little bit as well. They're now, because they went to record highs very recently, and they're now down 3.3% for the week and down 2% overnight. Aussie market really has, it's led it really, which is a little bit of a shame for Aussie investors because the optimism or the hopium seems to last a lot longer in other markets apart from ours, and you've got to be pretty forward or pretty predictive to be able to catch that turn. But I would imagine overall though, we had the likes of, even with our tech companies yesterday, Technology One, sort of barely missed. There's great things in the future. Dropped 16%. And there was a tweet yesterday from a dear friend of mine, Rudy Philippek, who's from FN Arena, and just saying, and I've heard a number of people say this as well. Ben Clark from TMS and things like that. The algos are definitely here because you miss by a smidge, and you absolutely you're basically taken out to the firing squad. I would imagine 16% for a quality company like Technology One. I mean, that wouldn't happen in the US. It shouldn't happen here, but I think they're kind of right, and we're not as liquid as some of those global markets overall. So, but look, Technology One, I would imagine. I was asked yesterday whether we should be buying it, and given my broadly, very cautious or probably mildly bearish outlook at the moment is, look, if you are interested in Technology One, buy about a quarter. And this is general advice only. It doesn't take into account your circumstances. But buy about a quarter of what you want to buy, and then probably wait for the Nvidia and payrolls numbers to come out, and then maybe buy another quarter on Friday or something like that, and just see how this plays out, because you might get another opportunity to buy the dip here. But buy some, because it's a great company. I've always been pretty cautious on it because it's traded at a massively high multiple. But however, there's some really good agentic technology that company's developing that I think will help it broadly gain geographical advantage outside of the UK and Australia as well. So yeah, it's one of those things where sort of that dollar cost averaging, I think, is a great tactic overall, and but certainly in these indexes at the moment, as you can see, the daily technicals now are a strong sell, pretty much across the board, all bar the Euro stocks, and you're even looking at neutrals turning negative as well. So just to give you a little bit of an explanation of where we pull these things from, because obviously, I've been asking you to, or been saying to everyone on these morning calls of late, basically, watch the technicals. So this is how we sort of derive these things. So it really is just an average of the daily. So it's, RSI, stochastics, ADX, ATRs, highs, lows, bull bear power, basically, and what they're essentially saying. And at the moment, you've got the stochastic on the shorter term time frame is still signaling a buy. There's a couple here that are signaling oversold as well, but that's why we sort of garner the average of these things. But look, there's 1 buy, 1 neutral, 7 sell out of nine indicators, and then moving averages as well. You've got I mentioned yesterday, we slipped through the 50-day moving average. These are for the S&P, by the way, the S&P 500. The moving averages slipped through the 50-day moving average yesterday. We're still above the 100. We're still above the 200. So that's a buy. They're still signalling a buy. And this is another one here. And you can go to our website as well. We've got a whole, we've got a piece in our education section about sort of the basics of candlestick patterns. But these are fairly reliable candlestick patterns that are on a daily, a 5 hour, a weekly, and a daily time frame essentially. So and you can kind of see here it gives an explanation of an engulfing bearish reversal, medium reliability, things like you would have to go through the definitions of these. But some people love their candlesticks and a lot of people use them. You can really go down the rabbit hole on these if you want to. And but I think I think the reliability of some of these patterns here, as you can see. We've got, on a weekly basis, we've got some pretty bearish, engulfing bearish stuff that's very reliable. That's, quite a few sort of candles in, and we are starting to see all of those indicators sort of turn around. So, when I mentioned sort of price action, that's sort of slightly different. Price action is something that is a term that traders use, whereby a bullish result is met with a company result, for instance, is met with a bearish market response. That's poor price action, and vice versa. A disappointing result met with positive price action, like James Hardy yesterday, for instance. That's positive price action. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background because realistically, there's not a huge amount of news necessarily, despite the move overnight. It really is just more of the same. So I just thought I'd take that opportunity to explain to you, some of the metrics that we're using there. So you're not sort of in the dark. But as you can see, again, look, Apple sitting on a fair bit of cash. Not the most innovative. Berkshire Hathaway sitting on a mountain of cash, and then Google, which obviously Berkshire Hathaway started buying in, very recently. But all of these big, they're largely flat essentially. But you got your Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and AMD down around about anywhere from 2.8 to 2.7 in Microsoft, 2.8 Nvidia. Amazon was down at 4.5, and then I think Home Depot had a fairly poor result overnight. Was down about was down at least 6%, closed down 6%, and that was on a poor result. That will raise more concerns about the consumer. And as you can see, Costco dropped 2, Walmart dropped 1.5 as well. Lowe's was down. I think 7%, or 2.5%, not 7%. But that general consumer sector not performing well on the back of that, those poor results. And we're going to get Target and things like that as well. But it's not painting the rosiest picture on the consumer front, which is obviously feeding into these concerns about the employment data that's coming up. An interesting fact that we found out was there is not going to be an unemployment rate for this payrolls number on Thursday night, which I will say may make the figure fairly moot in a way. It will be a really interesting test of price action, because when it gives the market the ability to spin the figure however it wants. I mean, if you've got an unemployment rate and the headline number, it's pretty hard to fight, to swim against the tide. But if we get an okay headline number and we get a sell-off, or again, that's that poor price action. And conversely, if we get a poor headline and it's received relatively well, that could be positive price action and a sign that we're showing some stability. But I can't remember. You've got to go back to April basically, a week or two in April. This year to see a 5-day result of down 5%. So for those major indices, and I would imagine Nvidia results tomorrow are going to be pretty enormous, and we realistically, it may not really matter what we've got these key earning estimates. Consensus revenue is around about 54.8 to 55 billion, which is 56% year-on-year growth. EPS at around about the 124, 125 mark, up 53.5% year-on-year. Data center division is expected to contribute nearly 90% of total revenue, with 58% year-on-year growth. But what we're going to be sensitive to, so that, almost guarantee that, and I don't like using the word guarantee, but you rest assured, NVIDIA will beat. I'd fall off my chair if they don't beat both on top and bottom lines. But what you've got to watch out for is these major storylines to watch. And Wall Street's going to be really sensitive to the company's Q4 rev guidance. Look, execution on the new Blackwell chip, and then some, possibly, I don't think the immediate reaction will be on forward demand signals like long-term contracts, but that will probably filter through over the course of the day, or as the analysts get their teeth into it. And look, and profit margins, whether they can maintain that 70+% profit margin. So the options market is pricing in around about a 6 to 8% move for the stock post earnings. So it's a $320 billion market cap, sort of potential swing essentially. We're not talking. I mean, the sheer gravity of how big like NVIDIA is just enormous. The company itself is bigger than some sectors, we're really looking at a 320 bill market cap swing, with that 6 to 8% is basically it's a good 2.5 BHPs. They're predicting a swing, so it's going to have that weighting in that market, as you can see back here in the market map. It's a significant weighting of the index, and it's going to, and it has really been the cornerstone or the tentpole of this AI rally. And it's, I would be it'd be highly anticipated. When numbers like this are so unbelievably highly anticipated, I tend to find that there's sort of knee-jerk reactions, but everyone's kind of squared up before the number, or and look, if you haven't looked at the market this week and been a little bit nervous and taken some off the table if you own it, I mean, you deserve what you get, to be honest. So it, but I would say there would have been a lot of risk off. There was a couple of really big long-term shareholders like SoftBank and Peter Thiel that have sold their entire holdings and stuff like that, and there's been a fair bit of insider selling as well. So, but I wouldn't expect NVIDIA to be getting slaughtered, more than 10%, because they've been very, very good at their earnings. They've been very consistent. Jensen's always been great at being positive on the future. And yeah, I mean, look, the only thing I think that could probably push it down beyond that, like a 10% move or a double-digit percentage move, would be if Jensen is measured rather than hype, being the normal sort of hype man. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So likely will be roughly around about the 9 o'clock, or hopefully around about the 9 o'clock time tomorrow for me to be able to digest all these numbers and give you a bit of a rundown. But look, and then just flicking to commodities, gold, silver had a little bit of a bounce overnight. Probably just a bit more of a risk-off sentiment in terms of going those flight to safety sort of scenarios. Copper drifted, but not. Look, I mean, crude was up slightly, coal was up slightly. I mean, we're talking 1% points here. Lithium took a breather for the first time in ages, down 1.5%, but still up 9% for the week. Uranium was flat, stabilised, but still down 8% for the week. And Bitcoin managed to gain some ground, but it was sold off pretty badly early under 90,000. Down 10% for the week, but potentially some sign there that it's stabilising, having a positive result for the day, up 1%. No movement in the currencies, which we would expect, and But yeah, we'll obviously get the Nvidia earnings around about well, 8:15, 8:30. So we'll probably have the headline results and some of the analyst reviews or early analyst expectation. Oh, sorry, reactions. But the earnings call will be probably too late for the podcast tomorrow. But yeah, so, and then as I say, Thursday night, you're going to have those payrolls numbers. And they're very much going to be, it's going to be the first bit of proper economic data that we're going to get for 2 months, basically. There will likely be an overreaction to it, I would imagine, because I can't imagine that these numbers are going to be, in 4 short days, being 2 months old, that these numbers are going to be compiled properly. So they could be wildly outside, and then there could be massive revisions, but I don't think the market will care that much. I think they're, getting that first batch of data back from the BLS. I think the reaction could potentially be quite severe. It doesn't feel like a market that wants to dismiss economic numbers and just go on its merry way. I think we're at very pivotal points from a technical standpoint, and a market level standpoint, whereby there's not enough sentiment or momentum to hold the market up, and it's a little bit nervy in terms of and there's not enough fundamentals to be holding it up if we get an excuse to sell. So still very much in buy the dip mode here at MPC, but we do see anywhere up to a 20% plus correction sometime in the next 3 to 6 months, and which I think would be more than reasonable. And in the scheme of things, the amount we've rallied in the S&P since those April lows, I don't think 20% would even get back to those lows. So it would not, in the scheme of things, would not be would not be that scary on a long-term chart. But it will seem very scary at the time. So we've got some annual general meetings today: KMD Brands, Medibank Private, Nuix, and Nufarm is going to give an update as well on the ASX. The SPI was only down about 0.17%, that is, and we got pretty savage yesterday. I would expect some dip buying somewhere in certain stocks today, but overall, I don't. No one's going to be taking any significant positions into these the blockbusting events in the next 2 days in the US jobs numbers and the Nvidia results. So yeah, I would say it'd be a relatively quiet day overall. Thanks for listening this morning, and I will chuck in that candlestick explainer from our website link in the comments on the socials. Have a great day, people. Stay